Hi there. I have another thought for the day, and I want to, as we move through the next months, uh, bring up a variety of different kinds of things that we're dealing with, choices that we have to be making. And so this is a contrast from the choice that is focused on technology and whether or not we want globalism. And this brings us back to plants, the world of nature, etc. So this is from Stephen Harrod Buhner's book, The Lost Language of Plants. And I'm reading from pages 20, 21, 22, and part of 23. So Buhner has been invited to New York, and there were all kinds of uh, back and forth communications that lots of people were interested in. A lot of people were going to be there. He had never been east of the Mississippi. He had never been to New York, and he was somewhat afraid. But he arrives at the place where he's going to teach, and there's no one there. And so he goes to the classroom and he waits. And so eventually, a grand total of 3 people showed up. He wanted to give them their money back, but they said, look, we came all this way, so teach us, teach something. So he says, we were chatting as they settled themselves, and something in what they said struck me as odd. So I asked them if they knew anything about herbalism or plant medicine. None of them did. And this was very strange because the people who came to hear me were usually herbalists. And so I asked them, why are you here? And they told me the truth. The woman on my right, perhaps 45 years old, answered first. She had been born in Jamaica, and her accent was still strong in spite of 30 years in New York. I love Jamaican accents, and I can listen to them all day long. No matter what they say, it sounds beautiful and moving and deeply poetic. She looked up at me and cleared her throat, and there was a funny feeling in the room. She said, well, man, lately I haven't wanted to live. And here she paused and took a deep breath. But my grandmama, she'd come to me in my dreams and she'd tell me, child, you've got to get your fingers in the dirt. She moistened her lips and her voice dropped to a whisper. Yeah, man, every night she'd come to me and she'd tell me the same thing. Child, you've got to get your fingers in the dirt. She shifted in her chair and looked up, going on more briskly. So, I kept thinking what to do. And then I hear about this place, a community garden, they call it. It costs $25. So I saved my money for 2 months and take the subway. And you know what, man? When I go there and put my fingers in the dirt, I know who I am again. She stopped once more and then looked at me earnestly and said slowly, such a thing has never happened to me before. And I come today because I think maybe I'm crazy. There was a stillness in the room, and I realized the rest of us were holding our breath. There was a sudden rustling of clothes and indrawing of breaths, and we all shifted in our seats. So I turned to the next woman, a young white woman who had originally been present. She looked like she had been raised suburban, middle class, maybe in New Jersey. And I asked her, why are you here? She looked up shyly, nervously, conscious of the other women on either side. Well, she said, lately I have been thinking of becoming a naturopath. So, not too long ago, I flew out to Portland to the naturopathic college there to see if it was something I wanted to do. She paused and moistened her lips, her head tilted slightly down. They offered a tour to prospective students, where you go through the buildings with a guide and you hear from present or former students how great it is. Well, there were 10 or 15 of us, and we were stopped in the middle of this hallway. I wasn't paying attention to what the guide was saying. My mind was wandering, thinking about something else, when out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a woman as she opened a door to my right. I turned and I looked, and it was the room where they keep all the plants, all the herbs they use for medicine. And I could hear each one of the plants crying out to me, talking as clearly as I am talking to you now. And there were hundreds of them. She paused for a moment and then went on. So I came today because I thought that perhaps something in your talk could help me understand what had happened. I've been thinking, and here she moistened her lips again and looked around nervously, that maybe I'm crazy. We were entranced listening to her. And when she was done, there was a flurry of breathing and shifting, and a funny, sad feeling in the room. I turned to the last woman. She was, like the first, a Black woman, middle-aged, but obviously born and bred in New York City. Her features were hard, her face angular, her cheekbones sharp. She had come up hard, and it showed in every movement and intonation, in her clothes, in the fierce determination in her face, and in her strong, work-roughened hands. Tell us why you're here, I said. She looked up. Well, my man, he left me, and I haven't known where to go with my life now he's gone. I live in a little efficiency apartment, and I get up early in the morning when it's dark. I work all day, and I come home, it's dark again. I don't have a yard. She laughed grimly. This is New York. But I like plants, and so I grow them inside, in pots. And here she paused, and in a shy voice she said, they like it when you talk to them, They grow better. She shook her head. Anyway, there's this one. It grows all up the wall and across the ceiling, and it has big leaves. And she gestured with her arms to show me, holding them in a big circle that narrowed down to a point where her hands came together. Well, when I get up in the morning, the leaf at the end of the plant up on the ceiling is pointing this way. She held her hand like a big pointed leaf and gestured off to her left. But when I get home, it's pointing this way, and she gestured off to her right. I thought that maybe it was the sun, but none of the other leaves were doing it. And every morning and evening, it was the same. I kept thinking about it and wondering. And then one day, I realized that the plant was trying to show me what direction to take with my life. But here she stopped and cleared her throat. And I came today because I thought maybe I was crazy. The room was quiet when she finished. Ripples from what they had brought into the room lapped against the walls, ebbed inside us and slowed, and were still. And in the stillness, I looked inside and I saw the wound laid down within all of us. The damage to our interior world from the belief that we had somehow crash landed or inexplicably emerged on a ball of rock hurtling around the sun, the only intelligent inhabitants of Earth. The wound that comes from believing we are alone amid dead, uncaring nature. And then I took a breath and began to share stories of a time when the world was young, when everyone knew that plants were intelligent and could speak to human beings, when it was not crazy to have your grandmama come to you in your dreams and say, "Child, you've got to get your hands in the dirt." A time when it was different. Our disconnection from nature and our disavowal of interior depth of soul from animals, plants, and landscapes occurs all the time in all of us. But there is more depth in the world than we have come to believe or than we have been taught. Connection with the interior world of nature has been a part of our species' experience for millennia. Contact with it still occurs when we least expect it, in the glance of a loved one's eyes, in the shadowed green in an old-growth forest, in the primal power in the majestic walk of a bear, or unexpectedly in the dreams of our grandmothers or our daily interactions with plants. The words to describe this kind of depth have atrophied or are no longer present in our language. And because of this, the experience, when it does extrude itself, is often difficult for people to deal with. They sometimes think they are crazy and alone, the only intelligent life form on Earth. These are wounds. These wounds are the inevitable expression of an epistemological mistake. They are, by their nature, evidence of epistemological error. So epistemology is the study of the structure of knowledge. It's like an investigation into the justification for thinking or believing in something. That's epistemology. So let me say this again. These wounds are the inevitable expression of an epistemological mistake. They are by their nature evidence of epistemological error. And regrettably, the logical conclusion of that error is now approaching us at a great rate of speed. So think about that as you go through your day. How far away from the soil and plants are you? And think about this. As we move into the future, we're having to choose between more technology or more connection with nature. And we never think about, can we bring those two together? Our choices will change us. What kinds of choices should we make? Think about that as you move through your day, and have a wonderful day.